Another really, really nice thing that we have right now in OpenSSH is that it's this. Previously, the way SSH worked is that SSH uses super user when it starts, and then it drops privileges to an unprivileged user for doing a lot of the work that doesn't require privileges. Now we've gone even further than this. We made it so that there's actually like two main processes going on when you use OpenSSH. There's the pre-authentication part, just before you authenticate, and there's the post-authentication part. When you use the pre-authentication part, you have a large part of the server code which is exposed to the client. What we've done with this pre-authentication part, we've put it inside a jail, such that if an attacker, or for example, in the Loganaden pass, Loganaden clearly cited that the NSA has a program known as Bullrun that has capabilities against SSH. We think that those capabilities are related to the pre-authentication part, because that's the part that's always exposed to any client. Any client can probe the OpenSSH server by sending different kinds of to the pre-authentication part. What we've done is that we've essentially built a jail around the pre-authentication part of the server code, so that if a user is somehow able to hack the pre-authentication part, he doesn't have access to system calls, he doesn't have access to files, he's essentially jailed. And it's very difficult to do anything once you're in a completely jail process. And this jailing process is called sandboxing.
The jails are proper to BSD.
We
don't have it on Linux or other systems.
Yes, I'm going to that. This sandboxing support works right now on FreeBSD, which has support for a sandboxing mechanism known as Capsicum, which is being funded by Google. Google is funding the University of Cambridge, and I work a lot with University of Cambridge guys because they are FreeBSD developers. And for now, it's implemented, it's available on FreeBSD. Maybe what's one of the advantages of using FreeBSD on your server. And there's a guy at Google, his name is Drysdale. He is paid, he's working full-time. His job at Google is just working on porting Capsicum from FreeBSD to Linux. And occasionally we discuss ideas with him, and maybe if I have some time, maybe I'll try to get the port to speed up, because that's a huge security benefit of having Capsicum on Linux and having an OpenSSH server that supports Capsicum on Linux. That's a huge advantage. And yes, but again, Capsicum is, Capsicum is a change from the normal Unix philosophy. It pushes designers to write software in modular pieces that communicate each other compared to the normal Unix way. So it's like a new set of API for Unix, and pushing those changes in an operating system such as Linux is very difficult, because the development process goes very fast, and when you want to put so many changes into the Linux kernel, you have to break it into chunks.
The Linux kernel is modular.
Yes, it is, but here we are talking about inserting new APIs that are available to the user, and also because since it's developed on FreeBSD, which again implements POSIX, right? But the advantage that we have in FreeBSD is that the development process is much more controlled. So we are very careful as to what we insert into our code. Compared to the Linux kernel, I mean, I'm on the Linux kernel mailing list, and I work with some of the developers to push some changes into the Linux kernel. And it's very, very difficult. I mean, I often see developers complaining on Linux that, the patches doesn't work, the patches broke because someone did another change at the same time and it affects his patch. So when you want to push such a major change in Linux, you have to be very careful because at the same time there are many other people working at the same time. And it requires a lot of work. Personally, I think one person, even for Google, the guy is bright, very, very good, but requires at least I think 2 or 3 people.
Maybe you should understand that Capsicum is them that's porting idea from agile to program levels.
Yeah.
It's more like that. So it's ideas from agile, but
Linux
as
is
program
not
level.
Unix.
Yes.
We keep forgetting this, but Linux is not Unix. Previous is Unix, all these works which is going happening on, for example, dtrace. Dtrace is something which happened on Unix. So we didn't get dtrace for a while in Linux. I don't know if it's really
Because of
usable today.
I think license.
Maybe licensing is used.
Which is something
to talk about. And again, DFS, something which happened on Unix. You can't just take Unix code and put it on Unix and expect it to work. No, it's not going to happen.
So for the Linux version of your OpenSSH, you don't have the JVM process, but the rest is today.
Available, rest is available. So it's just a matter, I think that Capsicum will be available in Linux at the end of the year.
When you run the command to generate the key, you have to put flag -t with the name. Why don't you put it on now?
Sorry?
Why don't you put it as the option by default?
It's available by default. Okay. We made it. This new key, yes, I forgot to mention, the 25519 is now the default key in the newest version of OpenSSH. We don't recommend, we highly recommend that people start using this. So that's why we put it as default. But in the old version of the SSH client, the others, it's not that default. And yes, do you have any more questions?
Can you see what you removed from SSH?
Sorry?
What you removed? Yeah. Maybe you should say about the old keys that were not compatible.
Nothing is being removed.
Yeah.
There's just something new. If both sides are using this new mechanism, it's going to work. Else it's going to fall back on the old ones. It's not saying that the old ones are vulnerable now, they have been hacked, but just that the new ones are better. Use it.
What does it have on some issues that the old ones that are crappies will be removed?
Yes, okay.
If you remove all the keys and stuff like that, you will break the compatibility.
Okay. He's talking about there are some SSH clients like legacy SSH clients that use really old protocols to connect to newer SSH client, SSH server. And what we've done in OpenSSH is that we ban those clients because of a security risk. I mean, if you use a really, really old version of OpenSSH, there's still this option. Or if you use like another client, obscure SSH client, and I don't know why anybody would do that, but maybe some people have circumstances. And if you do that using those really old SSH clients, the newest OpenSSH server is going to refuse because we realized that it's time for us to remove badly designed protocols that we've been keeping on doing because of backward compatibility. And this is something that we don't hesitate to do in OpenBSD. We don't hesitate to break backward compatibility, even if some users are angry, because we want to push security forward. We want to drag the entire internet secure. We want to make the internet, the whole internet more secure. But again, we try not to break backward compatibility just for about any reason. Okay, so. And again, I just said a brief comment. The OpenBSD project has been running short of money. We were short of 20 USD. Turned out that this was affecting the running cost of, because we have a whole, like 42 machines, Spark, different architectures, Spark 64, and all this costs money to run. And all this is in POD rights basement, and cost us a lot of money. Turned out that we didn't have enough money. We had to put a call for donation, and there was one billionaire from Romania. He gave us 30,000, and then we pushed it further. We asked for more donation.
Billionaire who gave only 20,000.
20,000. I mean,
So can give something at least.
and
why did he give this? He was said.
sorry?
Why did he?
Because he said that he considered OpenSSH critical to his infrastructure.
Okay, so he runs a business which uses
OpenSSH, like 90% of the world. And we got money from Google, we've got money from some other companies, and we have around, like right now we have 120,000 in our bank, and we are aiming for 150 each year. So please give us money to keep our
Actually, you have many pockets.
Sorry?
You have many pockets to keep your money.
Well, the money goes to the OpenGate Foundation, which buys the equipment and then gives it to the And at one point there was even talk about if we weren't able to keep some of the machines running, like, okay, one of the OpenSSH developers drove back to he was going to take some of the machines and run it in his house in Australia. And then he said, you know, the guy, you take some of the developer's machine and run it at your side. But that's another debate. So thankfully, right now we are.
I could not see 6.5 portable version on the website.
Yes, you should have. You okay? Let's check.
Then,
Yes, it's available. It's
6.5.
available.
This week I'll
And it has been released.
And the second thing is maybe we spoke later about the VPN. This version,
Okay, it has some improved support for it, but it's not considered.
next version will be probably
I tried it.
We're
Not,
waiting for that.
I tried not to promise anything for releases because, for example, we are still waiting for the people at the IETF to give us our number allocation. So we depend on the number of factors, and then also the thing is the time. I do many things except apart from OpenSSH. I do many other things. So I have to plan my time. I have to organize it, and it's very difficult for me because I can do so much stuff these days to promise anything. So I prefer not to. But the lesson can tell you about it. About when are we going to the member allocation? No, okay, it's fine.
it takes time because it doesn't really depend on me. I got to find approval, which means you got to convince a lot of people, and that's the thing that takes time because they don't read my name.
And
Yes?
you spoke about OpenSSH, and I guess a lot of SSH implementation are based on this one,
Yes.
but we have a couple of others, OpenSSH clients and server.
Yes.
And I wanted to know if your change will be backported to the others, or
It's a very good question. I've been talking to Cisco about this.
because I don't know the specific one you spoke about the start, but I know the job there, the reuse
Yes,
of Linux, the what's the name?
Drop bear.
LSH, a lot of.
LSH is more or less dead.
Okay.
Concerning drop bear, they implemented some of those changes that we've done. They implemented 25519, and their version of their SSH client is based on their client is based on our code. It's something that I've been talking to them. But actually, there's only one guy working on there, and I told him, you know, we should pull those changes back, and he said yes. At one point, he said yes, but again, he has many other things to do. As to when this is going to be available, I
can't see. But it's planned.
But it's planned, it's planned. He has made some changes. I think he changed the DH implementation of, which is, it's a complicated term, but basically he moved it to 5519.
Okay.
And there's still some work remaining to be done. But Dropbear is definitely going in that direction as well.
One question from me. Given all the advances that has been happening in OpenSSH, besides the support, do I have a reason to use the commercial SSH? Is it still alive, this project? I remember you used it in the 90s, the commercial.
You want
SSH
the one from FCQ?
I don't know which company.
Yeah, it was bought
over time. It started in Finland somewhere.
Van
Bandai.
Yeah. No, but that security.
Yeah,
No, I'm talking about the commercial
It's
industry.
FCQ.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
everything that they have that.
The guy Tattoo is
Tattoo.
still selling it, and another guy I can't tell him how to buy his products.
I sent a mail to Tattoo, he never replied.
So
yes,
what
reasons.
he's selling actually, he's selling support. He doesn't have anything that you don't have here.
I don't know, in fact. Unfortunately, Tattoo has decided to cut all ties.
He doesn't get along with the OpenSSH.
And because he's not getting any money from it. He's running a business, like, we can understand it.
Okay, but there's been a lot more going on between
No, but I mean on the technical level, you haven't never done any comparison. For example,
You want to compare?
no, let's say you didn't have this sandboxing support.
Yeah.
Would you at some point say, okay, Tattoo's version has sandboxing support, we need to make an open version of it.
No.
So we don't know what
In
we have.
terms of what feature they have, the feature comparatively speaking, it's nearly the same. Maybe in terms of management, I mean, how you manage your clients, to push policies on your desktop and all. If you are using SQL products, it's easier because this one is open source. That means using a shell to do stuff like this. And when you go to the company, they want something for the web, which is pretty easy and all. And these add-on parts, you can get it in a commercial product.
Okay,
You
so they
won't
have
get
also something like enterprise management.
Yeah.
It sells all these enterprise management tools.
Any more questions?
Yeah, you said you are waiting for the confirmation of the organism.
The
which
ITF.
remembers the name. No, this one, the other one who got the false standards.
And I see.
You spoke about an organism which lead us astray.
NIST,
NIST,
yes.
And you said now you are waiting for their approval for something.
No.
No, ITF.
The
Something
ITF.
else.
Okay.
One is the Internet Engineering Task Force.
And
But right now you don't need them to publish anymore.
no.
Even if they publish the notes.
We need the ITF. Okay.
What you need, what is needed now? You know, what on the internet sometimes we use we say that, for example, this number means something, and we have a lot of people, a lot of countries and all, and you have to have a point of contact where somebody says, okay, I'm going to give out the numbers,
Yes, standards.
and you come and ask me for numbers, I'm going to give you numbers, any country, any person can ask for numbers. It's like a coordination part. And there's a vetting process before you give this number. Why there's a vetting process is because if without vetting, anybody will ask for a number, and you have a limited amount of numbers available, you're going to run out of numbers. So we are going through the vetting process. We ask for a number to support ED 25519 in DNS.
So just for you to reference this protocol as
No,
the official one.
he can add it in his
I have
code.
I have
Yeah, you wrote the patch for it, you can add it in his code. The problem is that for the world out there to know that what this number means, we got to publish a document, we got to get agreement on publishing this
So it's
document.
publication of the standards.
Yeah, it's standardization in a way. Standardization is like everybody in this room, we got to come together, we discuss and all, and we agree that we're going to keep Logan the number 4 because 4 is for Logan, and none of us are going to use the number 4.
Okay, and more questions? almost out of time anyway. So.
How to upgrade to OpenSSH?
Well, in FreeBSD we already imported the newest version.
Package manager.
You need to check with your package manager. I heard about that Debian has imported it. I heard about Ubuntu as well. As to when this is going to be available, I can try to ask the Debian people. Sorry? Already added. I don't know.
If you're feeling that way, so let's just compile the source. That's what I did.
Yeah, no, because I understand what the question is about. Instead of doing it myself, I need to buy a really nice
And this way, it's going to be important in the package manager.
Okay,
If it's a distribution, it's okay. If it's something like we use for the Cisco machines,
yes, the Cisco.
it might be more complicated.
Yes, the Cisco. We're talking to the Cisco people. It takes a lot of time. There's also like, well, it's a funny situation with Cisco actually. Is that they, for example, in their build of OpenSSH, they disable blowfish. If you go on the Cisco FAQ, you see we disable blowfish because blowfish isn't standardized, and they say that they don't ship ciphers that aren't standardized. They tell them that the ciphers that they're shipping that are standardized have been weakened by the NSA. So it's a funny situation, and it's hard for them now because they can't say, okay, ED2 5519 isn't standardized yet. I think there are some efforts the same way as standardization for ED2
yes.
Because I saw some mail from.
Yeah, there's some effort to standardize the graphic algorithm, which then Stan did. But as you know, the problem is that the US people look bad, and they are part of the book, which means that they're going to try to find reasons to slow down the standardization because they didn't invent it or they don't like it.
So it's not only a technical thing. There's a lot of politics involved. There's a lot of decision making, and SM is helping us. We've got, for example, Ajay's helped us a lot. Just before the release, he tested OpenSSH, gave us feedback, and that's when I noticed that we needed port allocation. SSH, yes. And that's it's a slow process. It's a slow process. We have many things to go through, and I don't work on this.
More questions?
So please really talk to your bosses. Tell them that we need money. We really need money.
In case of question, I think we can continue on the mailing list.
Yes.
Is that orders available on the mailing list?
About the mailing list, I still don't manage to subscribe on the page.
You are not subscribed on the.
I try to, but
Okay, that's it.
one page is not bad.
And I'll send on the mailing list. I'll send the workaround for connecting to the Cisco project using the US version of OpenSSH. I'll send the workaround that we have for now until Cisco fixes.
Why do you have a US version?
Sorry?
Why there is a US version? It's not the same for everyone?
No, the workaround.
The workaround. So again, now SM is going to.
Okay, that's it.